Join us on the program right now. NRA Isley's manager of hunting policy, and I'm going to call him the shepherd of right to carry in Wisconsin. Mr. Darren Lasort is with us. How are you, Darren?
Cam, I'm doing well, and that was pretty funny. Thank you. How are you doing?
Great. Glad you could be with us. So there was a committee hearing and a committee vote, as I understand it, on a right to carry bill today.
There was. The Right to Carry Bill, or Personal Protection Act, was voted on in the Senate Judiciary Committee today. So we had the hearing about a week and a half ago, and they exec the bill out of committee today, which means they actually voted on and considered amendments. And got it out in a very interesting and good form. It's basically our preferred and perfect system. They took two bills, which were a license bill, which was Senate Bill 90, and the constitutional carry or permitless bill, which was Senate Bill 93, and joined the two into one bill and created a permitless system where people who want to carry in the state of Wisconsin without having to get government approval or a license can do so. And then those people who want a license for reciprocity purposes or carrying through school zones will be able to get the license if they choose. And so it's the sort of hybrid system, and that's what's gotten out of committee in the Senate now and moving toward the floor.
Okay. So the next step for this bill then would be the Senate floor in Wisconsin?
Well, there's one stage before that. The Assembly is moving its license bill or its permit bill, AB 126, out of committee hopefully next week. We think Thursday is when the committee will move that bill out, and then those bills have to go to a committee called Joint Finance because there is a fiscal impact with these bills. And once it gets to that Joint Finance Committee, then we are ready to roll to the floor and finally get this thing done in Wisconsin after 10 years of hard work.
All right. Now, I got to ask you, Darren, because I've been disappointed to see, I guess there have been a couple of talk show hosts in Milwaukee, conservative guys who are, I don't know, maybe they're not familiar with the idea of permitless carry, but they seem to be poo-pooing the idea of permitless carry. Have you heard about this?
You know, it's probably one of the most frustrating things I've experienced in my 11 and a half years of working for NRA is seeing these people who are supposed to be freedom-oriented, who are supposed to be rational, who are supposed to be educated, making these claims that very bad things are going to happen if law-abiding citizens are allowed their constitutional freedoms. And that's what's happening. I mean, they're saying that constitutional carry is going to end in very terrible things. And they're saying if there's not a training mandate related to a license bill, that people are going to do terrible things. And what we know is the training mandate associated with the licensed portion of this bill doesn't necessarily improve the system because people on their own realize that it's their responsibility to get their own training. What it does is it disadvantages those people who can't afford the training or can't get to training, live in low-income, high-crime areas. They don't get their permits if there's a training mandate. Mm-hmm. What they do is informally get training from their relatives who are law enforcement officers, etc. They end up getting the knowledge they need to be responsible citizens, but they don't have to have the government tell them to do it. And these people you're talking about in Milwaukee radio should know this, and they should trust the citizens. But they're doing the same thing that the liberal anti-gun media always does, and it's really disappointing, and it's really frustrating. It's adverse to our cause for sure.
Yeah, it is disappointing. It is frustrating because, you know, you can look around at the states that have passed constitutional carry over the past couple of years, Wyoming doing it this year, Arizona. And, you know, we just had the FBI numbers come out, Darren, for 2010, and that would include, you know, half the year where Arizona had constitutional carry. And what we saw is that crime in Arizona actually went down. Certainly the presence of constitutional carry did not cause crime to go up in Arizona. It hasn't caused crime to go up in Alaska or in Vermont. I doubt sincerely that it's going to go up in Wyoming next year. The bad guys who are out there committing crimes, they don't care what the carry laws are to begin with. They're out there. They don't care what the armed robbery laws are. They don't care what the laws are regarding the dealing of drugs or committing drive-bys. I mean, they don't care, Darren.
No, they don't. What they do care about is that they know in Arizona more people than ever before are carrying guns to be able to respond to their violence, and they have to worry more than ever that the next victim is going to be their last victim. One thing I did when I was lobbying Arizona back in the day, probably 5-6 years ago, we changed the training requirement from 16 hours to 8 hours. The liberalization of these license laws that we always advocate for. I called John Lott, and I asked him, what's going to be the result if we change the requirement from 16 hours to 8? He said, you'll see an immediate doubling of the number of permit holders in the state. We went from 77,000 to 160 or 170,000 in less than a year. So he was absolutely right, even more than what he expected. But when we went to constitutional carry, those criminals now know that there are many, many more people out there carrying guns, and they have to fear that their next victim is going to be able to respond to their violence.
Absolutely.
So it's a good thing. It's going to have the impact on crime that we want it to have, and that's a decrease.
All right. So, what should Wisconsinites be doing right now as this bill, makes its way through the legislature?
What we really need to do, and I appreciate you asking that question, is we have to. And I heard a segment from Ginny, is we need to have this bill done within the next 2 weeks. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like right now. We don't know if it's going to be the most liberal license bill in the country or if it's going to be that great hybrid of constitutional carry and a license bill. But we need to have our members contacting their legislators in the Senate and the Assembly and telling them that they have to do this now. They have to allow people to protect themselves and their families sooner rather than later. So getting a good, solid bill done, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but getting it done within the next 2 weeks is the most important thing, and that's the message that our members need to send to the legislators.
All right. Well, Darren, thank you again, sir, for coming on the program, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Ken. Take care.
All right. Darren Lasorte, manager of NRA ILA's Hunting Policy Division, but also the shepherd of Right to Carry in Wisconsin.